to my packet.
Jim just tried to call me, so I'm gonna go off camera and try and call him back, Neil.
Okay, thank you, Sue. So folks, while Sue is doing that, I think we've got enough folks to get us going here. We've got our quorum, and so I'm going to just hop into the agenda. And the first one, the first item on the agenda this evening is just a remembrance for Clarence Haynes, immediate past president. You know, for those of you that may not have had the benefit of meeting, knowing, or serving with Clarence, he was a big influence on me in my school board service, and have known Clarence and got to know him since I first joined the VSBA board. I believe that one of my first, I think it was the very first VSBA board meeting that I attended, I unknowingly sat in what was considered to be Clarence's seat. And Gio alerted to me at the time, and I didn't really know what he was talking about anyways. Clarence was a great sport about it. He didn't, he grabbed another seat. But really, I had never met a guy that knew more about sort of Vermont education law and certainly parliamentary procedure than Clarence. The guy sort of lived, breathed, and ate school board service. And there are countless number of kids, I think, that have benefited from his service, not only on his local board, but also the VSBA board. I did have benefit of attending services. I went along with Sue and Gio, who was our another past president of VSBA, had a chance and an opportunity to meet with some of the family there. You know, very sad and somber occasion, but I'm happy that we had the opportunity to sort of, you know, say goodbye to Clarence, and also thank him and his family for everything that he's shared with us. So I wanted to start with that, but another piece of this also, as all of this folks had seen, is that the family, together with his local SAU, is setting up a scholarship fund in Clarence's remembrance. And one of the things that I wanted to raise with the VSBA board, particularly because we don't necessarily have a precedent for this, as to whether or not the VSBA as a body, as this board, was interested in providing a donation or some funds to go into that scholarship service. I say that knowing that there were already some individual board members out there who have already contributed individually. So I didn't want, I certainly wanted to say thank you for doing that. But B, also consider that in terms of whether or not it's an appropriate use of VSBA money to do so. And I wanted to put that issue before this body here today to figure out what folks' thoughts and sentiments were related to that. So if anybody, Sue, I think that we got some minor clarification from the SAU and the family on the details of that scholarship fund. And I guess they're a little minimal at this point in time, I would say.
Yes, we did get information from the business manager of the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union. The name of the scholarship is the Clarence Haynes Memorial Scholarship. He provided information, the address to mail any donations to, and who the check should be made out to, which is the Clarence Haynes Memorial Scholarship, care of Wells Springs Unified Union School District. And he also said the family has not made any decisions on the specifics of the scholarship, but it will most likely start with next year's graduating class. So that's the information that we have right now.
Thanks for that, Sue. And then, sorry, one more clarification from board members, which might help in your decision point on this one. And I know, Sue, that we briefly talked about it, but I don't know, do we have a mechanism by which, if the board were so to decide that if individual members wanted to contribute, the VSBA might be able to collect the funds and then make a single donation on behalf of all of those that wanted to just sort of donate individually? Is that a possibility for us?
Yes, I checked with Carrie about that, and she thought we would be able to do that.
Okay. Board members, anybody have any thoughts related to this? I was uncomfortable making a decision on behalf of this body because I really thought it needed to come before the board.
Neil, it's Lori Childers. There isn't anything in the bylaws or resolutions that would prevent us from doing it, right?
Nothing that would prevent us from doing it. Am I correct, Sue?
Yes, I
Similarly,
believe you're
though,
correct.
nothing in there that suggests that we should either. Adrian, go ahead.
I did want to say, I mean, this is sort of a special case, and I think we could make a motion that wouldn't lead us into any kind of precedent. I mean, he was a serving board member and had been for so many years and as president. And I mean, that doesn't happen, and certainly wouldn't expect it to happen very often. But it's just.
I certainly would support Adrian's.
Don, you started out good and then you muted halfway in.
A little finger works, but no, I would support what Adrian said. I believe that Clarence provided leadership at a time when we were going through some transitions. Now, even before he became our president. So I think that type of service isn't going to happen very often. And so I would recommend that we come up with an amount to donate from VSBA.
Thank you, Don.
If I can, Neil, I just also want to let everyone know that we did send flowers from the VSBA and the board, and the family sent us a nice thank you note. Oh, can't really see it. Nice thank you note, thanking us for the flowers and for our participation at his services.
Thank you, Carrie. George, have your hand up?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, and not to forget that he also represented us on a national level. And he was all about the kids. So anything we can do to contribute to a fund to support kids, I think is well worth it. And again, Neil, as you've said, I knew right away he was a go-to guy first time I met him. So I appreciate everything he's done for us and for the kids.
Thanks, George. Based on what I'm hearing, I'm inclined to make a proposal that maybe the VSBA make a $500 donation toward the scholarship fund. I just want to see how that sort of sat with folks.
Is that a motion, or do you want me to make that motion?
It was a proposal, I guess, in the terms of negotiation. Kim, I just wanted to see what board member reaction was first before we turned it into a motion.
Got it. I would be supportive of that. Let me know if you need a motion.
Colleen?
Yes, I would appreciate it if the motion could acknowledge all of Clarence's contributions so that it's understood. You know, I think a lot of board members around the state don't know Clarence, didn't have a chance to meet Clarence. And I hate to say this, some people might wonder what the board is doing with their money. So I think to acknowledge all of Clarence's many contributions, that the motion could include a list, in recognition of A, B, C, D, E, whatever. I think that would honor Clarence's work as well.
Neil, I think we should also add, now that we've started it, this is to a scholarship fund. If we were talking about something else, like maybe a plaque or something, donation to a library or something, I might feel differently. But this is for the students that, maybe not the exact students he served, but students who would have been served by him had he continued to live. So I think the idea of it's going for a scholarship is important.
Thank you, Don. So I'm not seeing opposition to this, but possibly what we're, to Colleen's point, maybe a motion that might have a little bit more substance to it. And if that is the case, what I might be inclined to do at this point is to come back to this item just a little bit later in the agenda, which might provide an enterprising VSBA board member to draft a motion while we might be on a different topic. And then when that VSBA board member has done so, then they could just raise their hand and tickle me and let me know that they're ready with a motion And we might be able to come back to that item.
Were you subtly suggesting that of multiples of us, or would you like to?
No, to be quite honest, the one that smiled the most was Kim when I made that suggestion. And so I guess I was kind of wondering if Kim might be fast with a pen and be able to craft a little motion that we might be able to entertain later in the meeting.
Sounds good. Let me see what I can do.
Okay, thank you, Kim. All right, so board members, we will come back to that in a little bit. I am going to move on then to third item in the agenda, which is the AHV French case. This is the one related to public monies going to religious schools. We have now, over the past 2 VSBA board meetings, heard both from the local Vermont attorneys that were involved in this, but also at the last meeting, NSBA legal counsel related to this. And I got a sense from the last time that we met and spoke with the NSBA folks that this body, this VSBA board, was interested in possibly taking a position as to whether or not the VSBA was interested in encouraging the NSBA folks to get involved in this case. So for purposes of this evening, I was interested in getting a better sense of the board if my read of the board was correct. Mark, go ahead.
So this is a topic I feel really strongly about, and I absolutely think we should engage the NSBA if they are inclined to do so.
Let me, maybe we would benefit by me asking the reverse question. Are there board members that would be uncomfortable with VSBA asking or extending to NSBA that we would like them to become involved in this case? No. All right. So in order to make things a little bit easier, I had worked with Sue to draft some proposed motion language. And so let me pose the following language to this board to see if this would suffice as a motion. And that would be move that VSBA supports NSBA's entry of appearance in the AHV French case as an amicus curiae. And I don't know, Sue, if you might want to explain the fancy legal vocabulary that we use there.
Yeah, so amicus curiae means friend of the court, and it is an entry of appearance in order to submit a brief that educates the court on issues raised.
So Neil?
Mark?
As long as you don't make me repeat what you said, I will make that a motion.
Okay, so we have
second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion? And Carrie, for your benefit, I will make sure that if you don't already have it, I will give you the written copy of the motion as I read it.
And excuse me, Neil, I'm trying to take the minutes. This is Susan. Who was the second?
The second was Gaston.
Thank you.
Gaston. Is there any discussion of the motion? All right. Seeing none, then all those board members that are in favor, please raise your hand so I can see them. That is unanimous. All right. Thank you, board. So I will also admit that I was coming off of another meeting, so I was a little off my game when I started this one, but Sue kindly let me know that we actually have an adjustment to the agenda this evening that I forgot to let board members know about. We did want to add an item for the board's approval of an assignment to the pension committee that was established by the legislature this last session. And things actually had progressed a little bit quicker than we thought that they were going to. And it looks like Kim Gleason is already been appointed through a different appointing body. So not from VSBA, but left than VSBA with the option to appoint one more member. So later on in the agenda this evening, we will have an opportunity for this board to discuss that appointment and then hopefully make that appointment as well too if the board is in agreement. All right, I am going to add that then probably right after the resolutions committee update and before the strategic plan monitoring report. All right, so if we don't have.
And Neil?
Yes.
Sorry
Sue?
to interrupt. I just wanted to also remind you there's an item that we're removing from the agenda.
You are right, Sue. Thank you. We are going to remove the Zoom room discussion from the agenda this evening too, folks. We realized it was some more information on that we needed that we didn't quite have yet. Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
With that, then I think I will go right back to Sue, though, as we move on to our legislative update.
And the first part of the update will be provided by Sandra, and then I'll do the end.
Thanks, Sue. We wanted to provide updates on the status of the education bills that were reviewed in last week's webinar. Just to let you know, there have been 5 enacted to date. So H315, which was COVID relief, is now Act 9. H81, addressing statewide public school employee health benefits, is Act 7. S114, addressing literacy, is Act 28. S16, addressing equitable and inclusive schools, is Act 35. And H171, addressing childcare, is Act 45. The governor has signed several other bills that don't have act numbers yet, but just so you know, the following bills have been signed. H439, which is the budget bill. H436, which is the yield bill. H106, which is community schools. H426, addressing school facilities. H449, addressing pensions. S115, which is the miscellaneous education bill. And S13, which addresses the pupil weighting study. The task force on the pupil weighting study is composed of 8 members, 2 members each from the Senate Committee on Finance, the Senate Committee on Education, the House Committee on Ways and Means, and the House Committee on Education. House members are appointed by the Speaker of the House, and Senate members are appointed by the Committee on Committees. The governor signed S13 on June 7th, and the Speaker of the House appointed Representatives Peter Conlon and Kathleen James from the House Education Committee, and Representatives Emily Kornheiser and Scott Beck from House Ways and Means Committee to this task force. The Senate members have not yet been appointed. More information about the task force can be found on the Joint Fiscal Office website. Any questions before I tell you 2 other things for the legislative update?
Mark, go ahead.
The Senate members actually have been appointed. Hardy, Brock, Chittenden, and Kirchlick.
Thank you.
Sandra, you read early on, there was one regarding, I think, state facilities. Is that school facilities? What specifically did that move forward?
This H426, the school facilities bill?
Yes.
There's an inventory and an assessment of school facilities to be done by a third-party contractor.
So that's just a data collection then. Did they provide funds to hire a contractor, or are they going to use somebody that through the Agency of Education hiring?
You want to chime in, Sue?
I believe that they provided funds for that to the Agency of Education.
Good, because many times when they just give it to the agency doesn't have staff or funds, and little gets done. Thank you, Sue.
Okay, so two other notes. We are monitoring the veto session. There's indication that there will be one likely toward the end of June, and we're watching closely to see what that will include. And the end of session legislative report is being finalized as these bills are being enacted and the act numbers are being assigned. So as soon as we are ready to provide you with thorough information, we will be distributing the final legislative report.
And I just have a little bit to add. I wanted to provide you with some information on the task forces and advisory groups that were created this legislative session, because VSBA either has a role on them or is required to collaborate with them. So under S13, the waiting study bill, the task force on implementation of pupil waiting factors report is required to collaborate with the VSBA. So we're going to be working on that. H449, the pension bill. VSBA has the opportunity to appoint one person to the Vermont Pension Investment Commission, and you'll be hearing more on that a little bit later in this meeting. And also the pension benefits design and funding task force that was created in H449 is required to solicit input, including through public hearings from affected stakeholders. And that first meeting in the bill, it says it's supposed to occur on or before June 15th. We have not seen that meeting be scheduled yet, but we're keeping a close eye on that. H106, which was the community schools bill. There's a task force on universal school lunch that is required to collaborate with the VSBA, among other entities. Whenever I say they're collaborating with us, there's usually a list that includes us. Secretary French is required to call the first meeting of the Universal School Lunch Task Force on or before October 10th. Their S114 has the Advisory Council on Literacy. The VSBA Executive Director or designee is a member of that Advisory Council. S16 has a task force on equitable and inclusive school environments. And again, the VSBA Executive Director or designee is a member of that task force. And S115, Section 10 of the bill requires the AOE on or before January 15th, 2022, in collaboration with the VSBA to update and distribute to school districts a model wellness program policy using the expanded definition of wellness program. So lots of work to be done.
Any questions for Sue or Sandra? Seeing none then. Our motion creator from earlier in the meeting has been busy, and I believe she does have a proposal. I read through it. I think it looked good, Kim. So if you wanted to go ahead with that, I think that'd be awesome.
Sure. Somewhere in there, I'm going to put 2012. I figured out he and I came on the board together, and I had to go back and figure out when I came on the board. So back in 2012, somewhere in there, I'll stick that. I move that the VSBA make a $500 donation to the Clarence Haynes Scholarship Fund in recognition of his extensive years of service to public education, his devotion to students, and his service since 2012 to the VSBA with leadership as Executive Committee Member at Large, Vice President, President, and Past President.
Thank you, Kim. Do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second. That's Lori Childers.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Any discussion? Seeing none, then all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand so I can see. That is unanimous.
And Kim, will you email us that language?
Yes, I will. I'll send it to you right now.
All right. Thank you very much, Kim. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And Kim, You're doing an awesome job. Would you mind, I guess, turn it over to you for reports of the Finance Committee, which for most board members, hopefully should just be a continuation of the discussion that we began at the last meeting. I don't know if there's any updates or just questions, or we're going to need a couple of motions here, correct?
I think we will, and I don't actually have the wording for the motions, I don't think, and I apologize.
I do have that.
Okay.
And so for all board members, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the suggested motion language in the chat for folks.
Great. And I think while Neil does that, and I'm not forwarding that motion language from before yet, Carrie, so I'm sorry. Too many multitaskings happening right this second. We are in need of adopting our budget for the coming year, and that was what everybody had the opportunity to look at last meeting and ask questions, and there really weren't any follow-up questions. So I am suggesting that perhaps we take the motion language open for discussion, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions that might have come to people over the course of the month.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
I'll make the motion well, should I make the two motions together or separately?
Let's do one at a time. So start with number one.
Okay, the first one is I move that the board set the amount of revenue to be raised by dues for fiscal year 2022 at $426,107.
Thank you. Is there a second for that?
I will second. George Gondon.
Thank you, George. Any discussion on this? For board members that may have not been through this before, this is per because VSBA bylaws. We need to set the amount raised by dues first, which then feeds into the budget, then which is the second motion that we'll do. All right, if there are no questions or discussion, then I'll say all of those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you. Jim, you did such a great job. You want to do number two as well?
Sure. Okay, I move that the VSBA board approve the fiscal year 2022 budget as presented in the amount of $889,716.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Second by Floor. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Awesome. And that one is also unanimous. Thank you.
I'll just say thank you to the committee, Lori, Mark, and Jim, for helping us work through this. And it is pretty cool to be entering a 12-month fiscal year calendar that is representative of what most of our membership uses. So yay us. And it's not a weird dues year. It's just, it feels great. So thank you all for your help on that. And we will continue as a committee to be looking at the investment policies and, recommended language by bylaws and resolution, or I guess bylaws and policy. So the Finance Committee will be looking for a date and time that works coming up in the next couple of weeks, I think. To be forewarned, Finance Committee. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Oh, thank you for your work and getting us to this point. We appreciate it. So moving on in the agenda then, we are skipping over the Zoom room and we'll move on to VSBA committee assignment for the awards committee. So just when you didn't think that there were any more committees that you need to serve on, we've got one more for you, but this one's a good one. This one's an easy one, not too hard. I don't know if Sue or another one of the VSBA staff members might give a little bit of a background on this one for board members.
Susan's going to do that.
I will. I'll attempt video. If I get all garbled, I'll disappear again. So this award has been around, I believe, since 2000. 2015, possibly 2016. It recognizes a school board for its effective governance and its contribution to the district's students. There are criteria on a form application, and members of school boards and superintendents, members of the public, or other people who are somehow associated with or affiliated with a school district are welcome to submit the nominations. The committee members, and in the past it's been anything from 2 to 4 or 5 even, review those materials, which include the original application with language pertaining specifically to criteria listed in the application, as well as at least 3 reference or recommendation letters from non-board members. It may be your superintendent, it may be principals, it may be other district personnel, but not from board members. And the committee reviews each of those applications individually, and then we meet once, hopefully, usually, to review them, discuss them, and narrow that down to select a winner. Typically, we've had anywhere from 1 to 6 nominations, so it's not a ton of work. And we present a plaque to the outstanding board of the year at the conference in Lake Maury this year, early November, and have the option of also identifying a runner-up at the discretion of the committee. I would say the time commitment for this one is maybe 3 to 4 hours at the most. Don?
Don, you're
Sue, could you give us just a quick update on some of the previous winners? I remember groups from Burlington, different places, St. Albans come up, but give us some idea who the winners were.
So we did not issue the award last year in the COVID environment. If you recall, there was no conference, there was no time to present it, and everybody was scurrying around so much, there would have been no time to have a nomination, much less evidence to support anything, because everything was pretty helter-skelter. The previous year to that, we also did not name an award recipient. We received 1 nomination, and the committee did not feel that it was a strong enough nomination, so we tabled it that year. The year prior to that, I believe it was, I'll actually look it up.
Maple Run, Susan, Maple Run and Burlington.
Maple Run was the previous year or 4 years ago? That's what I'm trying to remember, Floor.
Yeah, I think Bennington Rutland had a runner-up spot.
Hold on. Okay, here we go. So in 17, whoops. Okay, here we go. In 2017, I'm working. So that was Maple Run, which is St. Albans. In 2018, I think we did not issue the award in 2018. In 2019,
Maybe Mill River.
the award went to Blue Mountain Union
Mountain.
School District, and Taconic and Green and Champlain Valley School Districts both received honorable mentions. And in 2020, we did not issue that award.
I'm looking at 2017 also. We had
Yeah,
that, or
yeah.
2016.
Thank you. That's before my time, so it's
Right.
not in my files.
2016 was Mill River.
Right.
And Putney Central School received the honorable mention.
thank you for that. Kesta?
Yeah, thank you. This is terrific that we provide these awards. So the question is, the way that it's presented, I was under the impression that this was 2 awards, one for Stafford Bell Award and then the Exceptional School Board Leadership. From the discussion, I'm not sure that's the case. Is it is it one or two?
Staff,
And-
sorry. Go
Sorry.
ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. If it goes to a supervisory union, who do you get in terms of letters of recommendation? Because if it's not a local board, then your superintendent is at the supervisory level. So how does that all work? Over.
Well,
Thank you.
So we have not awarded the exceptional board award to a supervisory union. Some of those larger ones are supervisory districts, but they are districts. So this is a district level award, but that includes, small local districts and larger unified districts.
The Stafford Bell Award is not that's an individual recognition, I believe. Correct, Susan?
I don't know anything about the Stafford Bell Award.
We
I've
we
never
don't
heard
give
of it.
this, we don't give the Stafford Bell that often. Like we give it on occasion when there's an obvious person in the state that has done great things for education.
And I've been here over 4 years and I've never heard of it, Gaston. So thank you for bringing that up.
And Susan, just for clarification, I would anticipate that this meeting, we would probably hold it remotely.
We've always actually held this one remotely because actually we've done it on the phone, but now that we're all such Zoom experts, we'll probably do it like this because there's not a real benefit to everybody having to travel to be in the same space for this particular conversation.
And ideally, how many board members would you like?
Because of scheduling complications, I'd say if we have 5, then if 3 or 4 are actually able to find a conducive time, that works well. 5 would be wonderful if everybody can make it.
Thank you. Amy, go ahead.
I volunteered to be on that committee.
Thanks, Amy.
Don, go ahead. Don, you're muted.
Again, okay, I would volunteer if there are not 4 or 5 other enthusiastic people who really feel they want to do this. I think it's a wonderful thing that we do it, and I'd like to see it continue annually. But I'll wait and see who else says this is something I've always wanted to do.
Mark.
Which Mark?
Sorry, let me do Mark Schauber first, and then I'll do Mark Clef second.
I volunteer to be on the committee.
Same with you, Mark Clef?
Yes, I'll get on.
Okay, and I saw George with his hand up as well too. I think that might give you the numbers that you need right there, Susan.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I'm just to let you all know that we're going to send an email out, a call for nominations shortly probably in the next week. There'll be an announcement in the next newsletter, which will be mailed out in early to mid-July. And anything that you can do to encourage not only your own boards, but boards in your VSBA regions to consider applying for this would be appreciated, because somehow it's self-recognition is not at the top of people's priority lists, which seems remarkable, but a lot of recognition is due to school board members, especially in this last year. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Susan, and thanks for heading that up. We appreciate it. George, go ahead, although you're muted, though. I still can't hear you, George. I think you're muted if you had something you wanted to say, or.
Okay, I guess it is. You're right. And I do have to go to a negotiation meeting right now. So thank you all. And I look forward to hearing from Susan on this committee.
All right. Thank you. Good luck, George.
Good night. Good luck. Yeah.
All right. So with that, we will move on then to an update from our resolutions committee.
Yes, a quick update. Let me just pull up my notes Sorry. We are meeting on Monday, June 21st. The Resolutions Committee will hold its meeting. We currently have no submissions, though we do anticipate at least one. And we wanted to mention, last year we had 2 boards submit a proposed resolution, which the Resolution Committee had decided to support if it was modified slightly. And it was quite difficult to coordinate the modifications with 2 boards. And the complexity of that process, it could be multiplied if multiple boards are submitting one proposal jointly. So we asked for a much smoother process through one board submitting a proposed resolution and other boards sending letters of support, if that's at all possible. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll know more after the 21st.
Sandra, you are really a finesser of process. Because I remember last year we were calling this board and that board, and somebody would send us an email only to send it out to somebody else who wanted to correct it. So you pulled that off pretty smoothly. One nominee and you can send letters of support. So thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Mark Shower.
For the scenario where you have multiple boards co-sponsoring, acceptable for all the co-sponsors to assign one board to make all decisions and coordinate with you rather than changing it to letters of support?
Sue, can you talk about what the details of the bylaws might say around that question?
I don't think there's anything in the bylaws about that, but that could be another way to do it. It would be up to all those other boards to sort of release their authority and give it to that one board if they're all all submitting it together. I'd have to think it through, I guess, how it would work.
The reason why I ask is that I think there are 7 boards that have signed on already, and to go back and undo the board decisions to co-sponsor probably would not be feasible in the time frame that we have left.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been involved with that multi-board resolution, and talked to the board that put it together in the first place, and just wondered if I suggested to them that they could go for letters of support. They offered, I don't know whether they're going to look at doing that, but they offered to be the clearinghouse. So if we have changes in the resolution committee that are being proposed, then that board will go and contact all the other boards and deal with that communication and coordination. That's what they've offered up.
Don, go ahead.
Going back to Mark Schwaber, and I'm not, I'm on the committee, but having chaired it and certainly defer to Sandra, some way there has to be one contact person who submits and who you can respond to. Because last year Sandra was wonderful, and I'm not going to name names, but it seems like we're working with three people who all had very good ideas, but they weren't always the same. And it took a lot of her time, and then I would get calls from somebody offline. So I think whatever we come up with tonight, how many submit, but one person has to be the contact person and has to then corral everybody else if they want to wander off the ranch.
Does that sound okay, Mark?
Flor, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say to Don that I'll be working with Sandra. I'll be chairing the resolutions committee, and we have shared also with some board members that we would have all the resolutions ready, well, Sandra and Carrie, before the meeting, because some people have a conflict with the date, so they'll be able to give us input ahead. I did talk to Mike about, because we are one of the boards that had signed on into that resolution for the weight study. And the easiest way that I could see was for each individual board to just write a letter, because it's not recreating the process. The chair can, sign a letter and send it. That might be the easiest if the boards were willing to do that. So I don't know what they're going to decide to do, but that might be the easiest way.
Any other questions for the resolutions committee or any other notes of progress that you want to report on? And then the final resolutions will be coming before the full board then in August?
August, yes.
Okay.
Neil, if I may, this is Susan.
Yep, absolutely.
And then we follow up typically with the September webinar to provide information to all board members that they have time to review so that they can inform their delegate for the overall vote. If there are very few or no submissions coming from other than the committee, we may opt to reconsider that design for this year and provide a video recording explaining them, but otherwise we'll try to incorporate a representative from the submitting board as we did last year, but hopefully in a live format this year.
Thank you, Susan. And then at this stage, is the committee itself actually entertaining any resolutions or no? Sorry, not resolutions from outside boards, but resolutions developed from the committee itself? No, okay.
They haven't met yet, so I
Oh,
think that's
all right.
one of the things they'll be talking about.
So I guess that would be a little premature. But just to alert, I mean, there have been times in years past where the committee has actually identified at least one or two items that should have had resolutions, and those resolutions have actually originated from the committee rather than from a member board.
Neil, in response to what you just said, I really think, and I saw this last year, when we meet in person, there's a different dynamic. And so you're in the room and with 10 other people or whatever, and all of a sudden somebody says, well, we've discussed this a lot, or we've thought about this, and the committee kind of coalesced around a resolution. It was a lot. It was harder last year. I think it'll be harder this year for a committee that's not in the same space to build on one person's idea to put it together a resolution. I guess if there's something really meaningful out there, it'll happen. But I did notice that when you're not in the same room, you don't always take an idea and build a resolution or a plan.
Yeah, point noted, Don. I'm going to trust Sandra and Floor as head of that committee to handle that process, and I have full faith in them that they'll be able to do it, efficiently and effectively. That being said, if there are other board members out there that think that there is a resolution that VSBA would benefit from, and that it's not coming from your local board, then by all means, please share that with Floor and with Sandra, and they can consider it within the committee. Okay, so if there's nothing else then for the resolutions committee, then I am going to sneak in our agenda item for appointment to the Vermont Pension Investment Commission. So I think as Sue had noted before, when we went through the legislation from this session, the VSBA is allowed one appointment to that commission. We just learned of that today. I don't know if there are more details in there, Sue, that you think are pertinent to share with board members, but we do have a recommendation for this board as to who the appointment should be.
I just have a little bit of information that might be helpful. H449 is the bill that addresses the pension issue. It was signed by Governor Scott yesterday, and it creates the Vermont Pension Investment Commission, which is a 9-member commission replacing the current Vermont Pension Investment Committee, which you might hear referred to as VPIC. So with the enactment of this bill, the VSBA now has the opportunity to appoint a voting member to the newly established commission. The initial term for this slot will be for 2 years, from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2023, and will then be subsequent 4-year appointments that would need to be reappointed. So that's the background on this.
Thanks, Sue. And then, so for board members, you know, while I think that he was hoping to serve sort of in the role of like a third base coach this year, we've actually agreed to have him back out on the field. And so, folks, I hope are not surprised. Our resident pension expert, Jim Salzgiver, has agreed to serve this appointment on behalf of VSBA. And I would like to forward his candidacy this evening for the board consider his appointments to that commission. I don't know, Jim, if you wanted to talk a little bit about anything, or if you're just looking for the go-ahead vote here this evening.
It's an area of significant interest to me, and I think my background, I think it fits well with the role. It is investment management, it's understanding pensions and actuarial issues and stuff like that, and it's of great interest to me. So we already have Kim's been doing a great job on that board to date. I think 2 reps from essentially from the VSBA, amongst others, would serve us well. I think that group is actually, it's been doing a pretty good job in recent years, and after some tougher years in the past. And I'm very, very interested in getting involved and spending the time and effort to try to make a difference there.
Any board guests on?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that Jim Salzgiver be.
Gaston, before you get too far,
Yeah.
take a look at your chat.
Yes, I can do that. Okay, so I move that the VSBA appoint Jim Salzgiver to the Vermont Pension Investment Commission as the member representing a school employer. Over.
Is there a second?
Amy McMillan seconds that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'll just say thank you. And Jim and I talked a little bit today to not twist his arm, but just to answer whatever questions he had about what the work's like, because it's hard to add one more thing. And I'm glad that he's going to. And I have found the work rewarding. My place there is through the governor appointed me to Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement System Board, and then they appointed me to the Pension Investment Committee Board. So that's the circuitous route that I find myself there, and I've served there a couple of years. So I think Jim will be an amazing addition.
So then just a clarification actually for me then. So Kim, you will be looked at then for being representative of that other body and not of this one, correct?
Yes, we don't get 2 seats as with the SBA, and currently I believe I don't actually remember what ended up remaining with respect to transition language and currently seated members, but I am currently seated by virtue of my role with the Municipal Employees Retirement System Board, and I represent them on the VPIC. So I'm assuming that continues to be my responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion before we take a vote? All right, seeing none then. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Oh, I was hoping I'd be able to say it was unanimous, so thank you, Jim, for raising your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this, Jim. We greatly appreciate it, and know that it's probably going to be a bit of work, so thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm looking forward to it. I'll try to represent us well.
Awesome. Moving on then to the VSBA Strategic Plan Monitoring Report this evening.
So I'll just give a short summary of the report and really focus on 2 areas that were our focus in the last month. One of them is the legislative work, which Sandra has really already summarized for you. And toward the end of this, well, throughout the session, it's a lot of work, but toward the end, it is very fast moving and there's a lot to keep track of. And so That was what was happening in May on the legislative front. The other area that I wanted to let you know about is education, because we had so much happening in the last month as far as education goes. We had 3 webinars. One of them was assessing equity with data with AOE reps Patrick Halliday and Jess DeCarolis. We had 107 people registered for that one and 64 attended. The second one was the school board's role in hiring and firing employees with attorney Pietro Lynn. We had 101 people registered for that one. And then the third one was the legislative update, which had 64 people registered. And then in addition to those 3 webinars, there was a significant amount of education going on for first time board members through the first year journey, which was an orientation for new board members that Susan put together. It was a 2-part virtual workshop in May. And actually, there were some of them that were so enthusiastic that she added a 3rd session for them. So that was really exciting to see some very enthusiastic new board members. And then in addition to all of that, we had the joint chair superintendent training that happened also in May, that was done in conjunction with the Vermont Superintendents Association. So I just really wanted to highlight all of the different education events that we had in the last month and all of the legislative work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Any board members have any questions? I see Judy, is your hand up with a question, or was that just from the previous vote?
Sorry, it was the previous vote. I apologize.
Oh, no worries, you're okay. Any questions for the on the strategic plan monitoring report? Oh, Jim, go ahead.
I just had one, kind of comment thought on, I think the, using data to assess equity was a good session and all. It also generated some interest among some, a couple of folks on our board that attended, which I was glad they attended. But just curious about whether we can do anything. My problem is the current dashboard has either no information or incorrect information for the most part, and I don't know if there's any sort of anything we can do. It's a great concept, but it's just in practice it's not working right now, I think. So I don't know if there's anything we can do to kind of push that forward.
Go ahead, Susan.
So Jim, thank you for your comments, and we heard you loud and clear during in the chat and the feedback forms so thank you for all of that. We have passed that along to the agency, but I also wanted to let you and everybody know that just today I had confirmation from Jess DeCarolis, who was the other presenter, who will be returning for our August webinar with a different group from AOE that works on different data reports. It's the Data and Management Division, I think, or Data Management Division of the AOE. And so the intent is to provide school board members with additional resources and additional data points and some guidance on how to use them to supplement other data and to get to a similar place. So while I respect that the current snapshot is flawed, and the biggest issue for most people is the fact that some of the populations are so small that the data is suppressed. And so contrary to our board retreat in January, where the folks in Arizona told us disaggregate, 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 we don't have access to that information because of those small numbers. Your superintendents do. So there's another avenue to access some of that information. But and right now, the snapshot is sort of lagging in terms of the different data points that it in fact does incorporate versus what it was designed to house. So it is clearly still quite buggy. And I have their assurance that they're working on it, but I have no remedy for it.
I wonder, in just thinking about the objective of helping boards think about disaggregated data and what it tells, the story it tells around equity of opportunity for students in our district. I guess, and I don't even know which of my hats it would be, I don't think we'll be well served to wait for the AOE necessarily on that. So I just don't know if we were to be able to provide support as an organization, if, you know, in capturing practices that are happening currently in the absence of AOE leadership on that particular area, or AOE unpacking through the snapshot. The data suppression issue is problematic, and State Board of Ed hears about it pretty regularly from folks from the Stowe area, and there really I haven't heard a resolution of how that's going to be fixed, and that's for any parts of the data, much less more finely disaggregated data.
Just to kind of, you know, the suppression of data is an issue right now because testing wasn't done of the type that they, you know, use in their reports. There are no comparisons, so things show up blank. And I guess, you know, just for, you know, for my district, you know, the data that is there is almost all incorrect. You know, it's a little bit frustrating. There's, you know, a lack of data, but, you know, things like teacher turnover and, you know, the numbers are all wrong. It just, you know, to me, it's a great concept, but it's only as good as the data that goes into it. And that's just something that I was in a way a little bit surprised that they came out, you know, hawking the snapshot when, you know, you know, currently it's for a lot of people, certainly my district, it's just not useful. So it's, if you're going to sell it, then it ought to work, you know.
I don't know that we should be holding our breath. I guess that's where, if we were to start to notice other ways that this is happening as a VSBA, and we can offer suggestions and support for how boards working with their administration might ask for data. That will be the shorter route, I think, to good information for decision making.
Thanks. Any other questions, comments from the strategic plan monitoring report? All right, seeing none at the moment, then I will move on to the consent agenda, which includes the May minutes, and I will look for a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Second by Kim. Any comments, corrections with the minutes? Seeing none, then all those in favor, please raise your hand. See all hands. Thank you, board. That was unanimous.
I'm sorry, was there a second?
I seconded.
Yes, it was
and I
seconded by
coordinated,
Kim
yeah.
Gleason.
Thanks, Kim.
I'm sorry, I should have said that, sorry.
All right. New business. Any?
This one,
Go ahead, Kim.
I don't know if it's new business. It could be new business probably any minute or any day now. The lifting of the emergency, state of emergency, and its implication for meetings. It is unfortunate, and Jim and I were talking about this today, that there was not either through legislation or some mechanism an on-ramp to this. Because like if this changes Friday and you have a board meeting Monday, or worse, changes Tuesday and you have a board meeting Tuesday, you are challenged to figure out the logistics of such things. We're trying to plan for it. We have a meeting on Tuesday. We've had like 200 people at our meetings virtually. We're talking about equity policy, just in case you're wondering why. And so it is challenging to figure out how we meet the letter of the law, safe and healthy schools, if they lift the state of emergency and now open the door, throw the doors open, let them come, and we've got, you know, kids on fields wearing masks, playing their sports because those are the rules. So I don't know that this is reconcilable. I don't know if Sue has any opinion on it.
I had been communicating with Secretary French about it. What he has told me is that the governor will first lift the restrictions as soon as we hit 80%, and then he thinks within 24 to 48 hours after that, the governor will lift the state of emergency. So it is very difficult to have this moving target. It would be much more manageable if we knew a certain date that the state of emergency was going to be lifted. But I did have a superintendent ask me a question about a meeting next week, which I relayed, asked the secretary about, because the question was about what you mentioned, Kim, the safe and healthy schools guidance. And basically what the secretary said was that if the state of emergency is lifted, there is no authority for that guidance any longer. They're recommending that schools continue to follow it. However, as far as public meetings go, the open meeting law really trumps any recommendation or any guidance. So the open meeting law needs to be followed. So if the state of emergency has been lifted, there needs to be a physical location where the public can attend. It doesn't mean that your board has to hold a in-person meeting. It means that there needs to be one person at a physical location. So you could still have a mostly, a remote meeting. You can still provide that opportunity. But I think they do recognize that as problematic. But that's basically what the information that I have, that the open meeting law, does apply once the state of emergency is lifted. And it's looking like we're going to reach that 80% probably on the 11th or 12th of this month. And then soon after that, the state of emergency would be lifted. So if you're planning a board meeting for next week, you have to consider adding a physical location to your agenda.
Tara, you have a question?
I do. So I am planning a meeting next week as well, but given that our school, the kids are out as of Friday, I've got mine planned to be in person because the kids aren't even going to be in the school any longer. So that was my, because it's so fluid, but that was my understanding, and that I didn't think there was anything wrong with doing that. Is that I won't be breaking any rules, will I?
No, I think that you'll be fine. I had a follow-up question from the superintendent that emailed me, and he asked about whether people who hadn't been vaccinated should wear masks. And so I sent that to the secretary, and he said that that's going to be a written recommendation sometime when the state of emergency is lifted from the Department of Health, that unvaccinated individuals continue to wear masks when they're in a public gathering like that. So you could certainly have that as a recommendation for your meeting for people coming in from the public.
So do we put a sign up then, or do I just make a statement at the beginning of the meeting?
You can do either, both.
Thank you.
One other item of new business, I just want to remind folks that the opening for the State Board of Education is available, and the application process, I think Sue sent out a notice to all the SBA board members, letting them know what the process was. But we anticipate that that will get filled probably either late this month or early July. Am I correct, Sue?
Yes, and it went out to all school board members that are belong to the VSBA.
Great. So if you're interested, please look into that.
I'm also happy to chat if anybody has any questions about the work. It's Kim Gleason.
Thank you, Kim. Any other items of new business? All right. I am not seeing any. We do have needs to sort of continue on though with this meeting, but without our VSBA staff with us. I see that Carrie has already kindly made me a co-host.
Yes,
so I
sir.
have control of the Zoom. Carrie, I am going to stop. I think if we're done with the main portion of the meeting here, I am going to stop the recording at this point.
Or you could pause it and unpause it at the point that you come back, if you want.
Okay.
It's up to you.
We have nothing else other than, the evaluation to discuss. So I don't see a need for us to come back. So I think I am just going to stop it at this point.
Okay.